On October 24, 79 AD, the Roman city of Pompeii had 18 hours left to exist. Most of its 20,000 inhabitants had no idea. Along with Pompeii, the Roman cities of Herculaneum, Oplontis, and Stabiae would all be sealed by the catastrophic eruption of Mount Vesuvius, an event that reshaped history and left an indelible scar on the landscape of ancient Rome. For centuries, this disaster was dated to August 24, but recent archaeological evidence now firmly places it in late October. Life in this region, nestled beneath the imposing peak of Vesuvius, was one of constant, subtle unease. For years, the ground beneath the region had been a restless entity. Seismic activity was not just a passing phenomenon, it was a persistent feature of daily existence. A major earthquake in 62 AD had already delivered a devastating blow to the region. In Pompeii, the scars of that previous destruction were still visible, and repairs were ongoing more than a decade later. Temples lay partially rebuilt, public buildings were under scaffolding, and homes bore the marks of past tremors. This constant vibration, this familiar rumble, likely fostered a false sense of security among the populace. The inhabitants had grown accustomed to the earth's grumbling, perhaps dismissing each new tremor as just another ordinary day in the shadow of the mountain. This familiarity would prove to be a fatal miscalculation. Then, on October 24, 79 AD, the familiar became terrifyingly alien. The eruption likely began around noon. What started as a column of smoke quickly escalated into a monumental spectacle. Mount Vesuvius propelled a massive, dark mushroom cloud of ash and pumice high into the sky, reaching an estimated height of 20 miles, roughly 32 kilometers. This initial phase marked the beginning of a relentless onslaught. For the next 12 to 18 hours, volcanic debris rained down indiscriminately across the landscape. Fine ash coated every surface, pumice stones, light yet destructive, pelted roofs and streets. Pliny the Younger, observing from Misenum approximately 18 miles across the Bay of Naples, later described the immense cloud in his letters to the historian Tacitus as a cloud of unusual size and appearance, noting its shape resembling a pine tree. He detailed the falling ash, the darkness, and the terror that gripped the inhabitants. As the skies darkened and the rain of pumice intensified, a stark choice confronted the residents. Many, recognizing the unprecedented danger, made the difficult decision to flee their homes, their belongings, and their entire lives. They streamed out of the cities, desperately seeking safety from the falling debris. However, thousands remained in Pompeii, perhaps underestimating the true scale of the disaster, or clinging to the hope that the storm would pass. They sheltered in homes, in public buildings, and in cellars, believing these structures would offer protection. This decision, to wait out the storm, proved to be a tragic error. The first phase of the eruption, characterized by the falling ash and pumice, was merely a prelude to a far more lethal stage. Pliny the Younger's letters describe his uncle, Pliny the Elder, attempting a rescue mission by sea, only to be overwhelmed by the ash and fumes, ultimately perishing at Stabiae on October 24, 79 AD. The true horror arrived in the early hours of October 25, 79 AD. The eruption entered its most destructive phase, unleashing superheated pyroclastic flows. These were not slow-moving lava flows, but fast-moving currents of hot gas, ash, and volcanic rock, hurtling down the slopes of Vesuvius at speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. The temperatures within these flows were extreme, reaching 360 degrees Celsius in Pompeii and over 500 degrees Celsius in Herculaneum. Anyone caught in their path, whether in the open or sheltering indoors, faced death in mere seconds. The intense heat caused immediate thermal shock, triggering instant muscle contraction, which is why the plaster casts in the Garden of the Fugitives show bodies frozen in their final postures. In Pompeii, these flows swept through the streets, incinerating everything. The city was buried under 14 to 17 feet of ash and pumice, preserving its structures and contents in a time capsule of volcanic material. In Herculaneum, positioned closer to the volcano and on its western flank, the fate was even more extreme. The city was engulfed by multiple pyroclastic surges, which solidified into a dense, rock-hard material, entombing it under more than 60 feet of volcanic mud. A haunting testament to Herculaneum's swift end came in the 1980s, when archaeologists discovered over 300 skeletons huddled inside the ancient boat shelters along the waterfront. These were people who had fled to the shore hoping to escape by sea. The first pyroclastic surge reached them before any rescue could arrive. After the cataclysm of October 24 and 25, the cities of Pompeii, Herculaneum, Oplontis, and Stabiae were utterly lost, not just from sight, but from memory. The landscape was altered. The locations were forgotten, fading first into legend, then into complete oblivion. For nearly 17 centuries, no one knew that entire Roman communities lay perfectly preserved beneath the hardened layers of ash and mud. In 1748, a workman digging a well in Campania struck ancient stone. It was the first of tens of thousands of discoveries that would follow. What emerged over the next 2 centuries was unlike anything archaeology had ever seen. A city caught mid-breath. Streets still bore the ruts of chariot wheels. The bakery of Modestus still held 81 loaves of bread, carbonized but whole, nearly 2,000 years after they were pulled from the oven. The frescoes of the Villa of the Mysteries still carried their colors. In the Garden of the Fugitives, the plaster casts of 13 victims, adults and children huddled together, marked the exact positions where they fell. In Herculaneum, where volcanic mud solidified almost instantly, preservation reached an even more extraordinary level. Wooden furniture, papyrus scrolls, and food items survived, as did the ring lady, a woman found in 1982 still wearing her gold rings and bracelets. Pompeii is not a ruin. It is the most detailed record of a single day in the ancient world, a day that ended in 6 hours of fire.